the morality of a divorce is going to be dictated by the people who are getting divorced, the divorcees, as it were. So this particular video made it into my feed because a viewer decided that I needed to be tortured. And it's a video from a very, very small channel, and I'm going to go ahead and say, please do not go and send any harassment over to this channel. When we're dealing with larger channels, they can handle it. Honestly, half the time, they don't even see their comment section. But when we're dealing with a smaller channel, we are almost always dealing with somebody who has never been inundated by a lot of people, so please do not go harass this person. Do not go make a problem of yourselves. Do not be like the people we tend to cover on this channel. The video is called Why Divorce is Wrong Most of the Time. I am going into it blind. Let's go ahead and see what it is, because of course my position is that divorce is morally neutral. But first, let's get into the fan art section. This one is from Avalon of Babylon. The weird look of the skirt will make sense when I put the pattern on it. Apparently, there's a Mewtwo Suris being made. Okay. The next one we have here is from Shadwrecker. I lined and colored this 2-year-old fan art of God Suris. Necrophage, thank you for resubscribing. I think I remember very, very vaguely a God of Destruction Suris being made, though I remember none of the details. But, as always, thank you very much for the fan art. As always, everybody, thank you all for your fan art submissions. If you want your fan art to be shown in a future video, the best way to do so is to drop it into the fan art section of the Discord. With that said, let's go ahead and take a listen to the video that we are about to do, but only after you hit the fucking subscribe button. Okay, now you've done that. Divorce is wrong.
All right. Hello and welcome to Chats with That's. Today, or this afternoon, I should say, I'm feeling quite zen. I cleaned my room and space.
So we're going to go ahead and hit the playback speed button because she is speaking very, very slowly. Robbie says, hey, Suris, hey, PayPal. Sure, one sec. Let me do that real quick, I guess. The fuck? Ravi! Ravi! Why did you do it twice? Why did you do it twice? But also, thank you for the 100 dono. But also, why? I'm trying to cover a video and you're making me fucking... That's why you wanted me to do it in the middle of the video. That's why you wanted me to do it in the middle of the video, you absolute trucking monster. Fine. Fine. You'll get the thing you want. Oh, whoa. You won't get me happy about it. You won't even get it said in a cutesy voice. You'll just have to fuck off. Makeru! Thank you for redeeming your points. That's not you. No, Liskade Babbitt, thank you for redeeming your points for an ara. And Tega with an oh, whoa. I appreciate all of you for being on the better side of history. Also, Axo, thank you for the hydrate. Yeah, I know you didn't redeem shit, Makeru. I can't read. I can't read. Let's get back to the video. Said we can get cutesy those from Saki. It's okay. Y'all are just going to abuse the fact that we're together now, aren't you? Aren't you? That's what you're going to do. You're just going to abuse the fact that that's there, and she's perfectly fine saying those words. What is wrong with you people? Anyway, let's continue.
Before filming this, and got myself a glass of water and a lavender candle, and yikes, that's hot. So, I feel very prepared to deliver you this message today. I wanted to talk about divorce. Now,
okay.
Disclaimer, I suppose. I'm young and unmarried, so I cannot relate to the pain and any sort of full extent of the highs and the lows that married couples and divorced couples face.
All right, so at least we can agree that being young and not having married can sometimes make the context behind some of the mechanics of marriage not exactly the greatest. But since I am also unmarried, I really don't know if I can say young anymore. I guess young is a perspective at this point, but I'm not married either. So I can only assume that it would make sense for me to respond to this from the perspective of equal footing.
This is just my perspective on it as a young conservative lady. So, with that said, divorce is wrong most of the time.
Okay, that's a statement. Let's qualify it.
Now, I know a lot of those red pillar people bring up the statistic that women tend to be the ones to initiate the divorce most of the time, but remember that correlation isn't causation, so I'm not necessarily blaming the women for ending the marriages every time, or most of the time. Don't worry, I can talk. But you know, it does mean that they...
I feel like just pointing out that it doesn't... Okay, divorce is a blameless thing. I'm just going to say that right now. It's just breaking up. It is just breaking up, but with bureaucratic, unnecessary legal red tape. That's what it is. Putting so much weight on the marriage aspect as opposed to just seeing it as, you know, a civil union between two people that can be shattered at any point, that puts you in this position where it feels so awkward to be like, God, we have to talk about divorce, but, you know, I don't want to talk about women initiating it, but. You don't need all these qualifiers if you don't put any of that weight on marriage in the first place. Though, this is where we do have to point out that, yes, most of the time when it comes to divorce, men get a very, very raw deal. A lot of the mechanics of divorce are very, very arbitrated. They are based in laws that were written around the time, and they're based in practices around the time when we did not have people who both had jobs. So a lot of the ways in which, you know, women will initiate divorce and then get a certain amount of money via alimony there, a lot of that can be based on laws that were written when women weren't going to have jobs. That's a problem. But in general, saying divorce is bad, like ignoring the men's issues part of this, saying divorce is bad means that people who are in abusive relationships get stuck in those divorces. People in unhappy relationships where they would be happier and thrive better in other relationships get stuck for longer periods of time for no reason. This is, again, when you put so much weight on marriage, you inevitably put way too much weight on divorce.
They are initiating it, but it takes two to tango. So, anyhow, this is very bad. Now, hookup culture, which is a separate topic, but if we're going to talk...
Well, if I'm going to separate topic into men's issues, then sure, we'll separate topic into hookup culture.
Talk about marriage as two becoming one. When you make love, you become attached to that person chemically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, all the leads. You're going to become attached to that person, and that is scientific. Feel free to...
No, it's not, actually. So, there are people that can have no strings attached sex, and they are able to manage that perfectly fine, but the reason that it's not scientific is that you added spiritually into there. There is not a single scientific paper that will tell you that there is a spiritual aspect to bonding, because any peer-reviewed, any replicatable paper will be able to have some measurement for that spirit part. I'm sorry, no. You're gonna have to give me some type of a citation there. But it's not a thing they're gonna be able to do here. Yes, when we have coitus with a partner, there is a likelihood that we will exchange pheromones and therefore will become more bonded with the person. But it's not 100% of the time. Again, there are people that are able to manage this without any trouble whatsoever. They're able to manage no strings attached, friends with benefit situations and stuff like that. I cannot because I'm demi. And because I'm demi, for me to even be sexually attracted to somebody, I have to have that emotional attachment first. So for me, sex will magnify any of those attachments. Because those attachments have to be there mentally first for me. But there are people where that's not the case. There are people who engage in swinging culture, and there are people who engage in kink culture who don't necessarily always establish these roles with each other, these connections that you're putting so much weight on.
Look up the data on that on your own, because it is a thing.
Look up the data for that on your own. Okay, cool. Did you provide any of it? No, you did not. So, common rules of practice. You are starting a smaller channel, Chats with Ats, so I am going to give this bit of advice to you. If you are citing data of any kind, then you need two things to happen. Either put the study you are citing in the description for other people to read, or throw it up on screen so that people will have the ability to snapshot the title of the study and read it on their own time. Just saying, the studies agree with me, and then moving on from there, that does not help you. It does not help your position. Now, I know that I'm guilty of this sometimes too. This is not me giving a holier than thou speech. This is a thing that I fail on as well, because all of my content is not pre-planned, for the most part, streaming content. As a result, sometimes it's hard for me to bring up a study if I'm thinking of it off the top of my head. So I understand that sometimes that may not be possible, but from your end, this seems like you made an edited video where you had the ability to either link the study or throw it up on screen. That's well within your purview.
And that is very bad for divorce. Not even mentioning hookup culture, that's a whole nother topic. But divorce, when you have been connected, not even from a physical aspect, but, you know, talking with that person, being with that person all the time, and you go...
She seems like she's going to have a breakdown. Again, Chats with Hats, if you are watching my video critiquing yours, there's a level of sincerity that comes across from here, but also there's a level of composure that it may be a good idea for you to maintain before recording one of these.
From that to breaking it off, it's extremely painful. And I don't, you don't need science studies to tell you that, because everyone knows that's true, and it's very unfortunate. An important thing to remember is when people say things like divorce is wrong most of the time, we have to make those generalizations, or else there is no standard for what's right and wrong.
No, you actually don't need to make generalizations for there to be a standard. You don't need to do that. I'm sorry, but saying like, we have to paint with a broad brush, otherwise, what would our foundation be? No, just say divorce is morally neutral. Just, divorce is morally neutral. The morality of a divorce is going to be dictated by the people who are getting divorced, the divorcees, as it were. This has nothing to do with some greater statement about a social construct we created as people. Marriage.
Okay, so yes, divorce is wrong most of the time. And I'm sorry if you've got...
Divorce is just a legal breakup. So this is saying that breaking up is wrong most of the time. So this means that most of your relationships that you are in are necessarily wrong, because you're going to statistically go through more breakups than you are long-term relationships.
Through that, or, I'm sure everyone knows someone who's been through that, but I do think in today's culture, most divorces are wrong and can be prevented. It wreaks havoc on children if there are children involved.
You know what else wreaks havoc on children? People who are unhappy in their relationship and trying to make things work for the sake of the kid. That wreaks just as much havoc as two parents who are able to separate and then get healthier, happier relationships. Happy parents make better parents than miserable parents.
I've heard the argument that, what if it's a toxic couple and, the children would be better if they didn't bring that toxicity in.
Okay, so you have heard that argument. What's your response to that?
With the exception of abuse, there are few situations that are so toxic enough that the parents should split and not resolve it.
No. If two people are not happy with each other, they do not mesh, they do not share any hobbies, no interests, no nothing. If they just simply are not happy with each other, that is enough to not be in a relationship with them. No one is owed a relationship. You going on a date with somebody does not make you owe them in a relationship, and you sitting on that altar and saying your I do's does not suddenly make you owe them the rest of your life. If a decision changes at some point, you only get one chance at this life. It's okay to walk away from that. It's okay to take time and go, actually, no, I'm not happy. I'm not fulfilled. I think it's better for me to go be with another person. That's an okay thing to do. It's a reasonable thing to do. Trying to argue that, no, it's just wrong, it's just wrong, it's just wrong. Saying, like, only in situations of abuse. There are non-abusive situations where people are toxic to each other and don't want to be together. A lot of times that toxicity literally is manifest not because the individual people in that relationship are abusers, but because being in a relationship with somebody you don't want to be with makes you more toxic to that person, because the parts of your brain that say, oh, I should be treating this person with every ounce of respect and happiness I possibly can, that starts to wear away over time when you don't want to be with them, when you feel like you're stuck there.
Because that children having to go back and forth, those children having to see the example of their father and mother separated and not making amends is horrible for their psychological development.
But hold on, wait, sometimes the breakup is making amends. I'm sorry, it's not horrible for a child. Which do you think is more horrible for a child? Which do you think is more horrible? Seeing their parents constantly miserable with one another, or seeing their parents happy but separated? Do you think they're taught a better lesson by being stuck in that situation with the parents that are toxic with each other? Do you think that the child will be happier and reared better because in that situation they are watching their parents suffer unneedingly? Or will they be taught a better lesson and stop that particular self-flagellating cycle if they see their parents resolve their issue, realize they are not compatible, and break it off? And then start seeing other people that might be more compatible for them.
There are studies on this too. You should research them, but it's very bad.
There are studies on this. You should research them. I will not show them. I will not talk about them. I will simply point out that they exist.
For children, you know. And again, I don't even need studies to show that.
Then don't bring them up. If you do not need the studies, then do not bring them up. Simple as that. Hold on. Is it? Let's do a quick thing. So I have the ability to bring up at least an article here. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. So this is from 1 second here. 1 sec. So, let's take a look here from Psychology Today. Because we actually can pull up some type of articles. Now, granted, this is not a peer-reviewed study, no, but this is an analysis of data. So, many parents believe that divorce will cause irreparable damage to their children. Some believe that some parents are so worried about this that they remain in unhappy, conflict-ridden, or even abusive marriages. What does the research say, though? Is it always best to stay together with the kids? The short-term answer may surprise you. The short-term answer is... yes, children thrive in predictable, secure families with two parents who love them and each other. Separation is unsettling and destabilizes things unless there is parental abuse or conflict. However, in the long term, divorce can lead to happier outcomes with children. When parents are arguing or incompatible in a deep and lasting way, divorce can be a relief for the children. A chance to breathe healthier air, free the tension of an unhappy relationship. When changes in family structure are handled well, which they can be, children experience temporary disruption but can achieve long-term resiliency and strength. If you're thinking about your child's ability to create happy, productive adult lives for themselves, then the answer is no. Try to make your best to make the marriage work, but don't stay in an unhappy relationship only for the sake of your children. Because again, in the short term, sure, staying in that relationship may be better. If your kid is 15 or 16 and you are sitting there debating on whether or not your relationship should be a thing still, waiting a couple years so that your kid can get out of the house, maybe. But again, long term, let's say your kid is 2, 3, 4 years old. Studies show it's better to just have the divorce. But I don't know. That's what happens when we actually go and look at the data. When we go and actually look at somebody who has done that research, and instead of saying, studies say, studies say, studies say, you can actually find somebody like Donna Matthews, PhD, writing on this stuff. She's a developmental psychologist and has arguably a little more experience on this than me. Yeah, it took 2 minutes. Another 2 minutes when I'm not recording, and we could have actually looked at a meta-analysis of data.
divorce is bad for children. So this is one of the top
Divorce is bad for children in the short term, but in the long term, it can be healthier.
topics where people love to bring up the exceptions to the rule. But the thing is, you have to think about our current culture. Does our current culture have a problem with staying divorced to someone who's abusive, so much so that it's going to hurt the children and the two partners involved?
Yes.
Sorry, not partners. I know partners isn't a very loved word today, you know, with all that LGBTQIA stuff going on.
Oh my fucking god, you cringe machine. Are you one of these people? Please don't tell me you're one of these people. Please don't tell me you're one of those people. Just fucking, oh, said can confirm now she's conservative. Well, she said she's conservative earlier. But I mean, so there's conservative in the sense that somebody is, you know, economically, fiscally conservative and deems themselves as being very socially progressive, and therefore it doesn't excuse the way they vote, but at least there's that. They won't harass you directly all the time. And then there's conservative, where they're like, P, oh, I'm sorry, T, not P. Why would I ever put a P in there? LGBTQIA+. People aren't very happy about that. Ma'am. I don't give a shit. Gay people exist. Trans people exist. Get the fuck over it. Let's continue.
But do you really think that people divorce too little or too often? It's too often. That's the problem, so that's why.
Okay, so here's the thing. I don't think people divorce too often or too little. I think divorce is morally neutral. Because a divorce is indicative of a failure in a relationship. A divorce just means that a separation happened. But I also like how she's bringing up the children. The children. Do you know how many married couples don't have children? More than you think. There are plenty of married couples who don't have kids and fall completely outside of this. Here's the thing. People like you will get very, very angry when you bring up exceptions to the rules that you try to talk about as being these broad generalizations that society must require, or the structure of the status quo is thrown out, or some weird shit. Here's the thing. It only takes so many exceptions to your rule before your rule is fucking broken. The commonality is always that there are exceptions to every rule. Exceptions make rules. Rules don't work without exceptions. But, again, eventually you come up with so many scenarios that are exceptions to your rule. What about abuse? What about toxicity? What about rape? What about unhappiness? What about finding out that they actually were long-lost cousins? Eventually, you hit a point where you're like, God, there's a lot of exceptions to this rule. Why the fuck is this a rule? Won't somebody please think of the hypothetical children?
We have to make that generalization and focus on that. Okay? Now, I know this.
We have to make the generalization and focus on it. No, we don't. As human beings, no, we don't. We don't need to make a broad generalization and then focus on it. Sometimes generalization, stereotypes, sometimes they're just wrong.
The lady, I've known her for a while. She's older than me. I've known her for like maybe 15-ish, maybe 10 years. She was with her husband for a very long time. They were a good couple, and they had ups and downs. You know, every couple does. And to be fair, I don't know the details, but they have several young children, like elementary school age, and they recently got divorced, and they decided to be public about it, and the details that they did share were basically it just didn't work out, and they're separating in peace. And we are seeing a lot of these couples separate in peace lately, but it's actually quite disturbing, because
how is it disturbing for people to separate on good terms? I was in a 6-year-long relationship that separated on good terms. I fucking attended her wedding. Well, as best I could. I actually had to pick up my roommate from work, so I was able to go to there and attend the gathering before the actual ceremony. But still, like, it's okay to separate happily and amenably.
You shouldn't be separating in peace. That is like the worst way to separate.
How the fuck is that the worst? What the fuck? Why? Why is it bad for people to separate in peace? How does that make any sense?
If you're going to get a divorce from someone, you should get a divorce because they are hella abusive and you need to leave them. And you're like, this was horrible for me. Thank goodness I'm out this. Not, we both left in peace and we wish each other the best. That's a cop-out. Just...
No, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you and the other person just realize you're not compatible together, and that's okay.
Because you feel like you've lost the love. And again, I know I'm coming from the perspective of someone who hasn't experienced this, but
yeah, as somebody who has experienced not one but two very long-term relationships, not counting the, like, fucking 8 or 9 that I had that were shorter, sorry, ma'am, no. No, when people realize they are not in love anymore and they've tried to rekindle that flame, they cannot sometimes, and they realize that they are just making themselves more and more miserable together, then they do not need to be together. The environment they create is not a stable or a happy one for their kids. And telling people they need to wear a mask for 18 goddamn years is also not happy or stable or healthy.
But, you know, I've known a lot of people to justify this, and I know the human nature enough to justify this. Just because you've lost...
God, she really sounds like she's breaking up. She really sounds like this is these relationships she hasn't experienced, these experiences she has not been a part of, they just affect her so much. What the hell is going on?
The love definitely does not mean it can't continue on. Our Western culture has a very, very dangerous and false belief that once the love is gone in a marriage, that you should just completely end it and cut it off. But that can always grow back. How do you think people with arranged marriages make it work?
Get out. Get out. No. No, we're done. We're done. We're done with your entire video. We're done with this. We're not justifying arranged marriages. We're not doing that. We are not fucking doing that. We are not doing that. We're clicking away from your disgusting video. We are walking away from that. No. Any good faith that I gave you in the beginning of this? No. Absolutely not. Not a single ounce of it is maintained anymore. Nope. Nope. That's where we go. That's what breaks me. You, as a human being, have a right to fall in love with who you want, be with who you want, be with who makes you happy. The concept of arranged marriages is fucking gross to me. The idea that your parents will set that all up and you may or may not have any consent in that particular scenario. How do people in arranged marriages make it work? Haha, teehee, LGBT. Oh, I'm sorry, fancy me. No, no. Get the fuck off of my channel. Get the fuck out of here. And I sincerely hope that the person who sent this to me for me to review, I sincerely hope you get a hangnail. No, no, no. We are not doing this. We are not doing this justification of the revocation of people's rights and ability to function happily as themselves and in their own relationships. We're not doing it. We are not doing it. Women aren't property, children aren't property, people aren't fucking property to be bartered for political or business favors. So, where does that leave you guys, viewers of this channel? I still don't think you should go and harass this person. I still don't think you guys should inundate her with any comments. I don't think we should create a scenario where this person grows. Because we saw that happen when Jimmy covered Paul and Morgan. Those people. When Jimmy covered them enough, eventually their channel grew to the point where they were able to sustain themselves and now start supporting Ron DeSantis and all of his political machinations. Let's not make that mistake. Please? I implore you. Please? As always, everybody, hit the like button if you haven't already, subscribe if you haven't already, and insert end of video tagline here.